We are following developing news tonight after federal agents raided the home of at least one Albuquerque police officer, and other officers are believed to be targets of the investigation.
That's right. Details are still emerging, but News 13 has also learned that many of the DWI cases that officer worked were dismissed today. This is the Los Lunas home where the feds conducted the operation this morning. The U.S. Attorney's Office would not say what the feds were looking for, but APD confirms tonight several officers are now on paid leave and others are being temporarily reassigned. APD says they've been working for several months now with the FBI on an investigation involving members of the department.
The district attorney says he's gutted about this as he dismisses 152 pending DWI cases involving the APD officers under investigation.
The idea of dismissing approximately 150 DWI cases is a gut punch to me. It makes me sick to my stomach.
District Attorney Sam Bregman speaking out about a federal investigation into several Albuquerque police officers. News 13 has learned the bombshell federal investigation surrounds accusations of officers getting paid to get DWI cases dismissed, though the district attorney did not confirm that. But he did say he had to dismiss 152 pending cases that may include the officers under investigation, saying he has no choice.
I can tell you that prosecutors have ethical obligations, and we are following those ethical obligations, and therefore that's why we dismissed the 150 or so cases.
News 13 went through the list of cases dismissed. They date back to 2016. We also discovered at least 7 officers connected to the cases. One of the officers was tied to 74 cases.
Well, last night, frustrated city councilors asked why APD has been tight-lipped about the investigation, but Chief Medina says that pressure is not why he's talking today.
This is horrible. It was a violation of trust for victims, a violation of trust for every officer who's out there doing the right thing, and we got to make sure we get this right.
With at least 150 DWI cases dismissed since last Thursday, Albuquerque's police chief says he's heard from a number of victims and understands their concerns.
I am not okay with these individuals being let off of their charges, but it is the right thing to do. Given the fact that these officers are accused of something that is just despicable.
Chief Harold Medina says he's been working with the FBI since October 2023, investigating allegations against officers in APD's DWI unit. That's shortly after he found out the feds were actually already looking into similar complaints of misconduct. News 13 learned the federal investigation surrounds accusations of officers being paid to get DWI cases dismissed. The chief can't get that specific with the feds in charge.
This is a very complex investigation, which is going to involve a lot of parts, a lot of different moving parts within the criminal justice system. So we're being very cautious how we move forward, and I have to respect my partners in this.
But Chief Medina shared Internal Affairs handed 5 officers notice late Monday they're under investigation in connection to this scheme. 4 are on paid administrative leave. One's been reassigned to a different department for now.
We've identified 5. We don't know if it's going to grow further from there. We don't know where it's going to grow from there, but we're currently at 5 officers.
Not all are currently in the DWI unit. One actually started there in 2011, meaning this alleged misconduct may go back 13 years. So how did the chief and administrations before him miss this? The chief says he's also asking himself that question.
But I think we got to remember that they got away with it if it was occurring. It's something that's occurred for over a decade. So obviously they were very good at hiding this. And we are glad that this administration has been able to bring this to light.
Chief Medina points out he views this investigation as proof the current administration is committed to reform.
I mean, we had 150 cases dismissed. It's horrible. So yes, in a way there is a stain on APD, but I think that there is the general public who's going to realize that leadership is holding individuals accountable. we're not sweeping anything under the carpet, and we're making sure that we fully investigate everything to the best of our ability.
Because the officers believed to be involved didn't just handle DWI cases, it's possible other types of criminal cases could also be dismissed. The chief says that'll be up to the district attorney. He also talked about reorganizing the DWI unit to include more oversight. We'll have more on that at 10. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Ann. Mayor Tim Keller issued a statement on this issue today saying, quote, "If true, what these individuals did is a disgrace to the badge and erodes faith in law enforcement." The mayor went on to say any individuals who engaged in this conduct will never work for the city again and should be held accountable to the full extent of the law. Money, drunk driving arrests, and a well-known defense attorney. Tonight we're getting a first-hand look at how those things may be connected in what's been called possibly the biggest police corruption scheme our city has ever seen. KRQE investigative reporter Gabrielle Burkhart sat down with a man who says he has proof of this scheme.
Carlos Smith tells me a DWI arrest from last year ruined his life, and he says the APD officer who arrested him referred him to an attorney who offered to wipe the case from his record for a price.
It's shocking and quite frankly disgusting.
You need to get off of this.
I do.
Okay. You're at the right place.
It was the most traumatic experience I've ever had in my entire life.
Carlos Smith's nightmare goes back to June 25th last summer.
I'm Officer Montano with APA. Stopped you for speeding.
Yes, sir.
Police lapel video shows the 42-year-old stopped by Albuquerque Police DWI officer Joshua Montano near I-25 in Central.
Carlos, why are you going so fast, man?
I apologize. I'm just trying to get over it. My bad.
Okay. Where are you coming from?
Downtown? Pizza place?
Okay. Any alcohol tonight?
No, sir.
No? Can I look at your eyes real quick?
Yeah.
Officer Montano checks his eyes.
Can you step out real quick?
As the officer explains more field sobriety tests, Smith admits,
I'm nervous.
saying he's concerned about his 16-year-old cousin who's watching from the car.
Just try to relax.
My cousin.
Oh. All right.
That'd be a good example. I shouldn't have sped. I'm sorry, sir.
Well, let's just see how you do, okay?
He does an eye test,
One.
walks in a straight line, and for this one mentions knee problems.
This is the bad knee, so can I do this leg instead?
Any leg you like.
Okay. 1, 2002, 2003.
Smith then counts backward
47, 46, 45, 43.
and successfully recites a portion of the alphabet.
F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R.
But in the end,
I do have to give you the opportunity to do a breath test.
Okay.
Okay, I do have to place you in handcuffs and I do have to place you under arrest.
Seriously, sir?
Carlos, do me a favor, turn around.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
To be truthfully honest, I was lost and super confused. I didn't know what to do, so I had no choice but to proceed and do what he asked.
leaving his cousin to wait for a ride.
She's totally fine.
Smith is taken to the Prisoner Transport Center downtown and willingly takes 2 breathalyzer tests. Montano takes off his lapel camera, so it's hard to hear this interaction.
But I took off your eye watch.
But you can see Officer Montano taking off Smith's Apple Watch and bracelet, something Smith's attorney says raises red flags.
The fact that he took off his lapel camera to interact with Carlos while he was effectuating the arrest was improper, violates standard operating procedures, and again goes to show the officer's intent to extort Mr. Smith.
After blowing below the legal limit of .08 twice, Smith was still arrested and booked into jail for DWI.
It started to make more sense and put the clues together when he decided to leave me a voicemail.
Hey Carlos, this is Officer Montano with APD. I was just giving you a call because I don't know if you realize, but I'm sure you do that. Some of your jewelry was missing from your property from Sunday evening, and it looks like the PTC officers didn't put that in your property bag, but I have it.
In a follow-up phone call, Smith says Officer Montano told him he could get his bracelet back from his attorney friend. Where did you go?
And it was one of the houses that was raided and was on television. When I saw it, I was like, wow, I was at that house.
Smith says he was sent here, defense attorney Thomas Clear's office, raided by federal agents last month. The FBI is digging into a scheme that News 13 has learned surrounds accusations of officers being paid to get DWI cases dismissed.
This scheme perpetuates a narrative that outcomes can be bought and sold. It undermines our entire justice system.
The proof, he says, is in Smith's recorded interaction with Clear's paralegal Rick Mendez the day he retrieved his bracelet.
I knew from that moment I needed to document everything, and I did.
How are you, sir? Yes, I am, sir.
Smith says Mendez handed him the bracelet.
What is my next best step to try and not get this on my record? What do you recommend I do?
If you need to get off of this,
I do.
Okay, you're at the right place. If
Okay.
you're one of those people that can live with it, then go hire a cheap attorney, not the cheapest.
Okay.
So we charge $8,500. You could do it in payments.
And with me, you representing me, that would guarantee that this doesn't go on my record?
Yes.
Okay, and the odds of me not going with you and going with the public defender, what do you think about that?
Roll the dice.
Is it okay for a paralegal or an attorney to offer a guarantee to a defendant?
That violates our professional code of conduct. That's 101. You do not guarantee outcomes.
Officer Montano is one of 5 APD officers currently on administrative leave pending the federal investigation. Amid the federal probe, the Bernalillo County District Attorney's Office was forced to dismiss nearly 200 DWI cases due to main witnesses' credibility being called into question, in this case, APD officers. Smith's case was also dropped.
I can't understand how a person can abuse their power that way.
The only way that the public is going to be able to trust this police department is if they see the officers held accountable and the lawyers involved held accountable.
So we wanted to know how many cases Officer Montano and Attorney Thomas Clear were involved in together. So we combed through the court data and found over the last 6 years, Montano was named as the officer in 36 cases with Attorney Thomas Clear. Nearly 90% of those cases ended in dismissals. We tried reaching Officer Montano and Tom Clear's law office, but have not heard back. The ACLU says it plans to sue the city of Albuquerque and APD for civil rights violations in this case. Back to you.
We're getting another look at how Albuquerque Police's DWI unit may have mishandled investigations. News 13 learned the feds are looking into accusations officers were paid to get cases dismissed.
4 officers who work or worked DWI cases are currently on paid administrative leave. One of them just quit the department. Now, a local attorney is sharing her experience with one of those officers that she says raised red flags. KRQE investigative reporter Ann Perrette has details.
The reason I pulled you over, I had you run a bit fast. I had you run 46 and 25, so I'm 21 over.
That's Albuquerque police officer Honorio Alba pulling someone over last July for speeding. He tells the driver he ran her license plate and saw her insurance is expired too. While she tries to pull up a copy of it on her phone, he asks if she's been drinking. She says no, but according to the criminal complaint, he believed her eyes were bloodshot and she smelled of alcohol. So he asks the woman to get out of the car.
So whenever you're ready, you can begin this test.
After multiple field sobriety tests and the woman complaining of the wind,
You didn't do through all these tests.
She's arrested for drunk driving.
We disagree. We didn't believe that there was probable cause to support his decision to arrest.
An expected argument from a criminal defense attorney. M. Naomi Salazar's represented people charged with a DWI in the Albuquerque area for 30 years. She tells me not much surprises her, except what happened in this case after that arrest.
Go walk straight to your left and have a seat on the metal bench.
When Officer Alba and Salazar's client arrived to the Prisoner Transport Center, or PTC, downtown, he takes off his lapel camera.
And it's supposed to be worn on the uniform so that it can pick up in a close proximity whatever the officer is observing.
Attorney Salazar says he's violating one of APD's standard operating procedures, and she should be able to hear every interaction the officer has with her client. But that's not all. Despite her client refusing a breathalyzer test, which elevates the charge against her to an aggravated DWI, Officer Alba told the woman to phone a friend to come pick her up. He tells her the prisoner transport center, which they're currently inside, is closed, so she won't be transferred to the jail that night. She'll get a criminal summons in the mail instead.
When I've never had a DWI client be released the way she was.
Another standard operating procedure violation, Attorney Salazar says, and then she points out how Officer Alba let her client go.
She walks out the door and then he turns around and goes back into the building. We don't see where she got in the vehicle, what's going on. He had custody of her. He has an obligation to make sure that she's safe. And I feel that that obligation was breached.
Attorney Salazar filed motions to dismiss the case, citing both violations. And just days later, it was, but not because of her motions. In January, Alba and 3 other APD officers were placed on the Bernalillo County District Attorney's list of officers who are considered not credible. As a result, nearly 200 cases have been dismissed. This was one of those.
I was pleased and I was happy for my client, but I was still surprised by it. I didn't think it went beyond this case. I just thought it was some error, what I believe were errors in the way this case transpired. I didn't think that there was a big picture or it went any further.
Albuquerque Police confirms if the prisoner transport center was closed, Officer Alba wouldn't have been able to even walk inside this building. Dispatch would have alerted him to the closure, and he would have been expected to drive the woman to the Metro Detention Center where she'd spend the night after being booked on the DWI. Ann Perrette, KRQE investigates.
Sifting through other DWI cases Officer Honorio Alba handled, we noticed this is not the first time he said that the prisoner transport center was closed. In other now dismissed cases, the officer let DWI suspects out of custody the night of their arrest without booking them into MDC. He would then file a criminal summons days or even weeks later. 2 people knew something was not right and they came forward.
They took their stories about corrupt officers to longtime Albuquerque attorney Damon Eli, who was alarmed and took the information to the FBI.
And I was really proud of these people coming forward because I think it takes real courage to do it.
Albuquerque attorney Damon Eli says he was contacted separately by a woman and a man.
A while back, I got contacted by separately, they didn't know each other, 2 young people, victims.
The 2 young people shared a similar story about a scheme involving APD.
I can tell you it described what I thought sounded like allegations of corruption. The day they came in, I let the FBI know. And I didn't contact APD because they obviously have a conflict.
Eli can't give specific details, including when he contacted the feds.
I have to be careful about what I'm saying in terms of, because there hasn't even been an indictment yet.
But he did say the 2 people shared similar stories to what News 13 first reported in January.
We know one way a case gets dismissed is by officers not showing up to a court hearing. An APD policy dictates a missed court notice should be generated when that happens.
This has been a constant struggle.
Chief Medina says the DA's office should be creating those notices and sending them to APD's Court Services Unit, who, as of 2019, then sends the notice to the Internal Affairs team to look into the officer's reasoning for not showing up. But
our last batch that we're finding in our system is September of 2022.
The department hasn't seen a missed court notice for 16 months.
We are working to figure out why we weren't getting as many notifications or where our notifications are going. Now look at it. I'm not pointing fingers anywhere. We just don't know.
While the chief made it clear he's not blaming the DA's office, APD did point to a, quote, system failure at the DA's office in 2022 that may have stopped the missed court notices. A spokesperson says the department received all of the notices from 2023 in the last few weeks. And now they're trying to streamline the notification system, working with all of the judicial system.
We're already working together. We're working together to increase the amount of missed court notices and that we have a better system. I mean, we're already seeing results of our working together. So we'll continue to work together and ensure that we also respect tax dollars and we are most efficient as possible.
Prior to 2019, the chief says the court services unit sent those missed court notices to each unit's commander. I asked if he suspects any wrongdoing by those unit commanders. He reiterated they are not ruling out anything at this point. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Ann. The chief also announced today the head of his criminal investigations division will work with the team to internally investigate the department, looking into how this happened and if anyone else currently within the agency could be involved. KRQE investigative reporter Gabrielle Burkhart sat down with APD Chief Harold Medina to ask how officers will be held accountable if they keep walking away.
2 months since Albuquerque Police Chief Harold Medina announced his department launched an internal investigation into its own DWI officers.
I was not shocked that any of them resigned and that they weren't going to make a statement to us.
5 officers have resigned from APD, all targets of the internal affairs investigation, and all connected to a federal investigation we've learned surrounds accusations officers were getting paid to get DWI cases dismissed. Lieutenant Justin Hunt resigned in February after 24 years with the department. Honorio Alba resigned that same month after 10 years. This month, both Harvey Johnson and Nelson Ortiz resigned after serving a combined 18 years with APD. And the latest to resign just last week, Officer Joshua Montano. He's been with APD nearly 20 years. Each of the 5 officers turned in their badge before an internal affairs investigator could interview them about possible involvement in the corruption case.
When they choose to resign rather than talk to IA, do you see how that looks?
I think it looks horrible on the individual officer, and I think it looks bad and it makes them appear guilty. But I also know that an inconsistent statement or anything that they've told the FBI before could be a federal charge for lying to an FBI agent. So they have a lot at stake here coming back to us.
Chief Harold Medina believes those officers are following an attorney's advice by not talking and claims completing the investigation is not only possible but a priority with other witness interviews. Meanwhile, a 6th officer, a commander of the Internal Affairs Division, remains on administrative leave.
Could this go beyond these 6 officers?
Without a doubt, we're seeing that the possibility is there. And we are currently still working through. A lot of individuals have retired.
And if those officers were part of a corruption scheme, it raises the question,
how do you ensure to the public, that officers will be held accountable when it seems like some of them have quietly resigned or retired?
Gabriella, we can't force them to continue to stay here till we terminate them, but these individuals have immensely lost. There's some that are extremely close to retirement that are losing out. And we haven't even gotten to the point of criminal accountability.
Financially, he says they're losing out on paychecks and a full career with retirement benefits. And when the FBI completes its investigation, there could be federal criminal charges.
We may not ever know the full truth and get every single member, but we will do our due diligence to ensure that there's accountability to anybody who wore this uniform and badge in the past.
The federal investigation prompted the Bernalillo County District Attorney's Office to dismiss more than 200 pending criminal cases, mostly DWIs the 5 officers were connected to. KRQE Investigates uncovered red flags in some of those cases.
If you need to get off of this.
I do.
Okay, you're at the right place.
Connecting certain officers' DWI arrests with defense attorney Thomas Clear III's office, whose home was also raided by the feds.
The part where you read between the lines is some sort of benefit to the officer from the attorney who charge is well above the market rate.
News 13 obtained a copy of Officer Montano's resignation letter, which states the issues I let myself get caught up in within the DWI unit were generational. In order for him to talk, he says he, quote, needed to not be the city's scapegoat for its own failures. He wrote, I take responsibility for my actions. But Montano doesn't elaborate.
But I gave my commitment to the public, no stone will go unturned.
Nearly a decade into being under the watch of the Department of Justice in a settlement agreement focused on reform, this year APD is closer than ever to full compliance. Since news of the DWI scandal broke, critics have asked how this wasn't brought to light earlier.
I honestly compliment so many parts of where we are today because we actually went in compliance and had accountability set up.
The chief credits part of the reform process with exposing wrongdoing.
A lot of the changes we've made through our reform process, actually I think in the end is going to explain quite a bit as to how this scheme was forced to change to the point where it became exposed.
Have you learned anything that surprised you through this process from January, to now?
I've learned that politics are rough, and God put me in this position, and I'm in a good place in my life and in my career where I'm here to do the right thing, but it is without a doubt been probably the most challenging 3 months of my 29 years of law enforcement.
Gabrielle Burkhart, KRQE Investigates.
Chief Medina says he's already filed police misconduct reports with the State Law Enforcement Academy, which could impact those officers' law enforcement certification. He says the public will hear about results when APD's internal investigation is complete.